Hey there, I'm Kat, and this is Brews and Reviews. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the 5 most disappointing books that I read in 2025. Now, just because I found a book disappointing doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just means that I had a problem with it and it wasn't necessarily working for me. Doesn't mean that it's not going to work for anyone else. Obviously, take my opinions with a grain of salt because everyone has different opinions. So let's get straight into the list. The first book on this list is Do Not Disturb, which I DNF'd at 41 pages into this book. Now, the reason I found this disappointing is that I hadn't read a thriller for a while and I was kind of expecting it to be good, and it wasn't. That sounds a bit harsh, actually. I don't remember very much about this book, except for the fact that this family has moved into a new place and they kept hinting at something that happened where they previously lived. And it hinted at it so many times that I already was bored and didn't care what it was, because they just kept hinting at it. I'm like, you don't need to throw it at me that many times. Hint it a few times maybe, but not 20 times in the first 41 pages. Obviously that was a bit hyperbolic, but it just really annoyed me, and I didn't care about any of the characters. They weren't pleasant people, but they also just weren't distinct enough, and I just didn't care about any of them. There was nothing that was hooking me into it, so I just DNF'd it. And it was disappointing to me because I was like, oh, I guess maybe thrillers aren't for me, but I'm gonna give them more of a chance. I just think that maybe that particular book was just not working for me at all. Next up we have Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. And let's be honest, this book belongs in the 2010s, and I probably would have liked it if I'd have read it in the 2010s. And I'm an old lady now. I'm 32. This book was not written for me, and I didn't enjoy it. But I did finish this one, which is a little bit sad because I don't remember the main plot of this book. There were angels, I think. Fallen angels? And stupid characters. I feel like I can distinctly remember characters making stupid decisions that no one in their right mind would make. And also there was a weird thing in like science class where they were talking about like potential mates that I found really weird, which probably would be less weird if you were like younger and you had like teenage brain. But it was weird to me that the science teacher was asking these specific questions about like what people desire. I don't know, it was odd. I don't know. Not for me. Next up we have Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin. Now this one I DNF'd at I think 150-ish pages, maybe not even that far. This book's about an apocalypse where basically everyone with enough testosterone turns into this like ravenous zombie type beast, and the main characters of this book are 2 trans women who are trying to survive by harvesting testicles that then the estrogen gets extracted from them, so this scientist friend of theirs can keep making estrogen to keep them, you know, alive and not turning into these zombies. Now perhaps my perception of this book is kind of influenced by what I had heard about it beforehand, and I just assumed that it was going to be more fun. Like, I mean, the testicle bag on the cover, I mean, it looks like it should be fun. It was not fun. It was a really bleak, horrible apocalypse, and some things happened to these characters that I really did not like. The thing that finally convinced me to DNF it was basically there was another perspective character who's a trans-exclusionary radical feminist, and they're like a whole section of people who really, really hate trans people, and you're in this woman's head as she murders a bunch of trans women, and I found that incredibly distressing, and I did not want to read about that. I just don't want to read that. I feel like there is a place for these stories, but I don't want to be in the head of somebody who is committing these like atrocities. I really didn't appreciate that, and I just don't think this worked for me. It might be a really worthwhile story, I just could not get past that. Next up on this list is I Accidentally Summoned a Demon Boyfriend by Jessica Cage. Now I hate that this book is on this list because I think if I had read it at a different time then I would have been less disappointed by it. I think I might have even enjoyed it, but there was something about this book that just really didn't work for me. It's about a woman who basically gets drunk in her living room one night and summons a demon by accident, and then she ends up linked to this demon and other demons start attacking her, so they're sort of like forced to be together. But neither of the 2 main characters are particularly pleasant people. I feel like they don't seem to like each other, and then their relationship seems to like jolt from let's be really mean to each other to oh let's make the next step in the romantic relationship, and it doesn't really make sense to me. And I found that I was like halfway through this book and I didn't care about either of the characters or what they were doing or where it was going. So I just DNF'd it. And this is a really weird book to follow the other ones because I do feel like I might have enjoyed this book had I been in a better mood when I read it. But this is my list of disappointing books, not necessarily bad books, so do with that what you will. And the last book on this list is The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. And having just said that this is a list of disappointing books, I do think this is quite a bad book rather than necessarily a disappointing book, because it just wasn't interesting. Because I know that there are so many adaptations of the Amityville Horror story, and I haven't seen any of them. So I was going into this expecting it to be really scary, because why would they make so many films about a book that ended up being really boring? I don't know. I can't tell you. It's about a family that moved into this new house where there was a murder previously committed, and they just sort of get on with their life, and then they find that it's like really cold in some rooms, and then there's bugs in some rooms, and then it's really cold in some rooms, and then there's bugs in some rooms, and then it's really cold in some rooms, and then there's bugs in some rooms. I'm so bored. I got so bored reading this book. If it was any longer than a 6.5-hour audiobook, I would have put it down, because I could not have cared any less about these people. How many times does weird stuff start to happen in your house before you go, maybe we should move, or maybe there's something fucked up happening here? I don't know, but I honestly couldn't tell you anything else about the book apart from the fact that it was cold and there was bugs, and I feel like there was a whole thing about the dad's mind being like messed with, and he was like potentially going to murder his family if they stayed there longer, but I don't remember, because it was boring and I didn't care. So there we have it. Those are my 5 most disappointing books of 2024. I don't have much else to say about them. Please remember that these are all my opinions, and disappointing doesn't always mean bad. So yeah, if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!